Good evening, everyone listening to this. Welcome to part 2 of user research. On Monday, we went through part 1, and it involved empathy, talking to users, recruiting users, doing screeners, getting your research plan, identifying your research goals, etc., etc. Today, we're going to talk about what happens after you've been able to recruit your interview participants through your screener surveys and also interview them. And I hope that you have been enjoying the experience so far. But just before we get started, I just want to reiterate that what we're making you do is what you're going to be doing when you get a job at a big organization. So I want to encourage you again to try and actually do these interviews. Don't take shortcuts. Do these interviews, and you would realize once we start to go through the content of this class and when you get to your next task that the only way you can do the next tasks and the ones that follow is actually getting your interviews done right and properly. Okay, that being said, let's dive in. Okay, we'll cover what happens after interviews. We'll cover empathy maps. We'll cover defining stage. We'll cover user personas. We'll cover ideation and idea prioritization. And then we'll cover the useful tools. And then I'll show examples of each of these things from a research that I did sometime last year. Okay. So, what happens after the interviews? You're probably asking yourself this. You're asking, now that we've gotten all this qualitative data, what am I supposed to do with it? Everything, all the information you got from your interviews are very, very valuable. And, like I kept reiterating each time people ask if they should submit or not, you have to keep them safe. Even though we're not asking you to submit them now, you have to keep them safe because they're very important that you do. They must be properly documented. And then after documentation, you have to analyze them so that they can guide you in your design decisions and lead you to a well-designed solution. So after you're done with your research, the next steps are empathy mapping, then the defining stage, and the ideation stage. And we're going to take this one by one. So empathy maps. An empathy map is an easily understood chart that organizes and summarizes all the qualitative data recovered from users during interviews. Now, like I said before, this is very important that you do your interviews right, and here's why. Since the empathy map has the information that you got from your research, a good empathy map is the result of a well-conducted interview. So if you want your empathy map to reflect properly the mind of your user, you have to do your interviews right. So there are two types of empathy map. There's the one user empathy map, and this empathy map contains feedback from only one user. And then there's the aggregated empathy map. This type contains feedback from multiple users, which means that there is one map, and then the information from about all 5 of, for example, for your task, all 5 of your users are inside that same empathy map. Okay, now let's talk about, sorry about that, what goes in each quadrant. Now the sales quadrant records what they said. And here you want to try as much as possible to use direct quotations, like exactly what they said in quotes. You can quote them verbatim, or you can paraphrase, anyone that works for you, as long as you're putting the right ideas in your map. And then the doors quadrants records actions or behaviors users demonstrated in their responses, or exactly what they did in the interview. Now, let's first explain what they demonstrated. It means that say, for example, you ask them, what did you do in that situation? So when they tell you what they did, you note it down and then you put it in the DOS quadrant of your empathy map. Also, let's explain exactly what they did during the interview. So if they did something, you didn't ask them what they did. You just observe them doing this a particular thing that is relevant to the feedback that you're looking out for. Then you also put it in the DOS quadrant. And then the things quadrant records what they didn't say, but you can tell through facial expression. So here, this just reemphasizes the fact that you need to be very observant. You need to be observant to the facial expression, which is why you are encouraged to do videos. Encouraged to do videos so that you can see and observe and guess what they're thinking. And then the feels quadrant records what they feel. In cases where you ask directly that, okay, how did this experience make you feel? When they tell you, I felt sad, so you want to write that. Participants felt sad about, phrase it however you wish, but that is just an example that helps you record how they feel. So is that, and there are two parts to this. Is that you record what they said they felt when they're sharing an experience, or you observe them and you can tell that, okay, this person feels a little sad. So sometimes you may not have to say it, which brings back to mind careful observation. You're watching them, you are seeing what's going on. Okay, so let's go back a few steps and look at it. So we have these safe quadrants here. That means what they said exactly, their direct quotations. What they did means that what they said they did, or what you saw them doing during the interview. And each of these things have to be relevant to you. And then what they felt, what they told you they felt, or what you saw, what you observed by yourself, and then what they thought. This is more of you're trying to predict what's going on in their head from their facial expression. So that's it for the empathy maps. So after you've been able to summarize the feedback into the empathy map, next is to highlight the key problems that you uncovered from their responses. Now you have your empathy maps. Everything is pretty organized. Everything is summarized. So it's from that you begin to scan through and look for the problems that they said they have, or you observed that they have yourself. So the aim of this stage is to create good problem statements based on findings from the empathy stage. To do this, you need to go through the empathy maps and identify the key challenges the users mentioned, or those that you observed yourself. Now, these challenges will be obvious as long as you ask the right questions during the interview. So here's the deal. If you don't ask the right questions, you won't get the answers that you need. And if you didn't ask the right questions, it means that you must have left, must have lost some direction with your interview goals and then research goals and research questions. So if you start to do your empathy mapping and you're trying to identify pain points and you realize that you didn't find any, it means that you've missed out on some very important questions that you should have asked. In that case, you should go back and interview some more people. Because aside motivations, aside behaviors, one thing that you need to identify are the challenges, the problem statements, the pain points. And then once you find them, if you do your interview as well, you definitely find them. Once you find them, highlight them in a way that makes sense to anyone who reads. Okay, so before we go I know many of these things seem a little abstract. So at the end of this class, we're going to go through, like I said before, we're going to go through a research that I did sometime ago, very, very early last year. Feels nostalgic, but we're going to go through it and we're going to see how I did mine so that it make a little more practical sense to you. So, user personas. Personas are fictional users whose goals and characteristics represent those of a larger group. They help to keep empathy focused. It helps imagination. And remember, it takes imagination to be able to empathize, to be empathetic. So user personas help us do that. Though they're fictional, they're built up with info gotten from research. And it helps to imagine, sorry, there's a typo here. It helps us to imagine who the ideal user might be as with research. So this person is not real, but these goals are real. They are fueled through the research. And this is also real as well. And the demographics too are quite real as long as you follow them through your research. But what matters most are the goals and challenges and also how you can help. But this particular example doesn't have all the necessary details. Let's go through what they should have. First, they should have a fictional name, fictional occupation, and then the demographics. Some of these demographics you would have uncovered as you ask them, intro questions during your interviews or in your screener survey. And then the behaviors. These behaviors you would have definitely uncovered if you ask the right questions. And then the challenges. You've already identified your pain points, so challenges should jump out. It should be easy. And then the goals. These also you would have uncovered if you ask the right questions, and make sure that the goals are related to the challenges so that it keeps you focused in a good direction. And then once you've identified all the pain points, the real pain points, not made up pain points, real pain points that that truly affects your users, you can now start to generate ideas on how you may eliminate the pain points. To do this, you have to brainstorm. So brainstorming involves creating an atmosphere where ideas can flow freely and bounce off other ideas. So brainstorming, when you brainstorm, well, there are lots of many ways to brainstorm, but I'm going to present you with one that has worked for me and invite you to employ the same format. And I believe it will work for you too. But there's no one way to generate ideas. I just want to say that there is no one way to generate ideas. People come up with ideas in many different ways. But this is a model that works. It has worked for many. It has worked for me. So you pick one pain point, and then you come up with a how might we questions. This should be in quotation mark. How might we questions? So you can see room for solutions. For example, say the user pain point is, I don't get my dog food orders on time. I don't get my dog food orders on time. So you pick that pain point and you ask yourself, how might we enable the user to get their orders in time? So when you keep reiterating that to yourself or with your team, solutions begin to come out. How might we? How might we? Now, the word might is, it's a form of symbol of humility. It kind of says that we're not saying this will work. It's okay if it does, and it's also okay if it doesn't. Most of these ideas are not, as you think about them, as you brainstorm them, they're not set in stone. So you want to build on each idea you have, either with yourself or with team. So say one idea is to, what idea can I use to build up on the other? So the pain point is that they're not getting their orders on time. So you can say there'll be a timer for them to track the others. So, people like to feel in control. So once they see that the others are coming, they feel a little bit more comfortable and it feels a little less late. And then if you want to build up on that idea, you can say that, okay, you can put the number of the delivery guy so that they can call and say, okay, where are you? So, although it may not reduce the time of delivery, but it's an idea and you write it down, you document it. So that's how to generate ideas. Now, these ideas may work or may not work, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you churn them out, you write them down. So you build on each idea you have, either with yourself or with your teammates. And then don't limit the range of your ideas. Think of crazy ideas. Think of ideas that are funny. Think of ideas that may not even be possible in this century. Just think of ideas, push out ideas. Get your brain in that mood of generating solutions to each of the individual pain points that you pick. So think of crazy ideas and don't be limited to digital ideas. Then you want to aim for quantity over quality. Don't at this point, it's not time to criticize your ideas. No, you just want to push out as many as you can. It doesn't matter if it makes all the sense in the world or not. Okay, seeing a question. Well, we'll talk about questions after the class. So you want to aim to churn out as many ideas as possible. Try and go for 100 different ideas. Just keep pushing them out, keep pushing them out. You pick a pain point, you come up with as many ideas as you can. Pick another one. You ask yourself, how might we come up with as many? It doesn't matter if they're workable or not. At this point, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you push out as many ideas as you can. So aim for quantity over quality and be sure to document them. Because, we don't want to lose your ideas. You don't want to forget. That will be quite painful for you. So document all the ideas you come up with. And then after you're sure that you've come up with as many ideas as you can, now prioritize them. So one of the simplest and effective ways to prioritize ideas is to use the idea prioritization grid. It's not the only way. It's just one of the ways. And I think it's not too hard to understand and it still works quite well. So the prioritization grid or matrix, those words are used interchangeably, is used to evaluate the level of impact your ideas will have on the user while also accessing their complexity and feasibility. Complexity means how hard is it? How much effort do we have to put into bringing this idea, into turning this idea into a solution, into building this idea? And then feasibility is this idea actually doable? Is this idea too early? This time 10 years ago, I'm sure fingerprints, nobody could think of fingerprints on phones. So if you thought of fingerprint at that point, your manager will tell you this idea is not feasible. So that's just an example of feasibility. So you want to think of how tough it is, how much resources and time, mental efforts to take, and then you want to think, is this even possible in the first place? So you're accessing impact, you're also accessing complexity and feasibility. So this is what the matrix looks like. So let's go into each of the quadrants one by one, and we'll see where you really want to work with. So if your idea falls under the low efforts and high value, you want to do it now. Low effort means it's very easy to build. It's very easy to design. It's very easy to build. And then high value means once the user uses it, the user experience will be the best. So this is any ideas that fall here are the ones that you want to do immediately. The ones that take low effort and have the highest impact. Let me say that again. The ideas that fall under this. Now you have to be very honest with yourself when populating this matrix with your ideas. try to be as unbiased as possible. Now, if you were in a team setting, then everybody will be able to churn in and drop their own opinion. But now that you're alone, try to be as objective, pragmatic as possible. So any idea that you deem fit to be in this quadrant means that it's easy to build and it passes on the highest value, a very high, not the highest, but very high value to the users. You want to do it immediately. The one you want to do next is the one that takes much more effort, high effort, but also delivers very, very high value. Let me take that again. The ideas that you want to do next. When I say next, I mean only after you've exhausted all the ideas here. So if you have 10 ideas here, you want to do all 10 here before touching this place at all. Yeah. So once you are done touching all this, you want to move here. High value, high efforts. This means that it's probably quite complex, but it also still delivers very high value. So you're here, next. And then the one you want to do much later, much later is the one that takes low effort, but delivers low value as well. It may or may not significantly optimize the user experience, but it's quite easy to do. It takes very little resources, little efforts, really little time. So you want to do it after you've done the ones that take high effort and deliver high value, high impact. So, and the ones you do not want to do at all are the ones that deliver low value and require the highest efforts. This is a very, very big waste of your time. So any idea that you find here, you want to, well, for lack of better words, you want to forget about them. You don't want to do them at all. They're a complete waste of your time, mental prowess, resources, both human resource, time resource, money as well. You do not want to go near here at all. So low effort, high value, do it immediately. Do everything here immediately. Once you're done here, you want to do here, high effort, high value. Then you want to do this later, low effort, low value, much later after you've done the high effort, high value. And then you want to avoid this quadrant completely, any idea. Now, remember, try not to be biased. They are your ideas here, but you have to be very honest with yourself. And because if you're not, it will perhaps come back to bite you in the leg, to come back to bite you in the leg. So be honest with yourself. Populate these quadrants with your ideas very, very objectively. You know, you already have your user persona. You know who your ideal user is. You know their motivations. You know their key pain points. You know what they're trying to do with your product. So use that understanding to populate your ideas here, unbiased. So low value, high effort. Nah, don't go. Okay. That being said, useful tools and examples. So for the next task, you're not going to be using Figma. No, you're not going to be using Google Docs or any of the tools in Google Suite. You're going to be using either FigJam or Miro. And we're going to go through the two tools together so that you can become somewhat acclimatized. And when we are done with that, we're going to look at an example of a research analysis that I did sometime last year on the project. So first, let's start with FigJam. Where's FigJam? Okay, this is what FigJam looks like. Let's take a while to load. Yes, this is what FigJam looks like. FigJam is a product that belongs to Figma. FigJam is a product that belongs to Figma. If you want to open a FigJam file, all you have to do is you already have a Figma account. We're not going to go through that again. You go to your dashboards, yeah, and You click on New FigJam file, and it opens one up for you. It's a whiteboarding tool, so you can use it to do a lot of UX research analysis. So personally, well, let me quickly say a little bit about my own story. When I started designing, Figma hadn't launched FigJam, so I started with Miro. We'll go to Miro a while later. But when FigJam was launched, I tested it out, and the experience was smoother. Although FigJam doesn't have as much features as Miro, but I feel I can work my around it as long as the experience is very smooth. So here's what it looks like. You can put your sticky notes. Let's see. You can edit the text, you can increase the size of the text, you can change the color, whatever works for you. You can bullet point, you can remove bullet point, you can choose to remove your name or add your name. That's your signature, more or less, like your digital signature. This is usually useful in team settings when you want to show that, okay, I was the one that did this work. I think I used it once for a research sometime in March. And yeah, it's kind of showed the clients that because we're three working on the same board, so it kind of showed the client that, okay, this is the section that I did without me having to say anything at all. So there's that. You can remove art. You can also use templates. There are a bunch of templates. Information architecture, probably are not. But I think there's an empathy map template, so you can use it if you wish. Okay, let's look at it. I think it might make it easy for you, easier and faster. Let's look at what the template looks like. Okay. Okay. Actually, it doesn't look bad. So if you were to use this template, all you have to do is you bring your sticky notes, you write, okay, let's say the participant said something. We said in the sales quadrant, you're using what they said, and you're going for direct quotation. So in that case, you say, you put your quotation mark to show that this is a quotation, and then you say, I have 3 dogs and 2 puppies. This is just an example. I didn't actually carry out any research. So you put it in the quadrant. Let's say you want to create more space. Then you scale it down a little. Then you duplicate. If you want to duplicate, you hold Alt or you press Ctrl D, anyone that works for you. I like to use Alt. So you duplicate and then you populate. And then let's say things. Was confused. What's next to do? So, and this is from observing what the person, what the face of the person looks like during the interview. And then let's go to the field quadrant. Then you say, this is the field quadrant. They say, you mention what the person was feeling at that moment, or what they told you they were feeling when they're narrating an experience. So you say something like, felt sad when dogs lost weight. So that's feel, and then does. Then you say, had to go to the grocery store was vendor not deliver. So So if you're to use this template, this is how you go about it. And then there's a space for pain points and then gain. You can ignore this. It's not every part of a template that you have to use. You can ignore this and just populate your pain points here. That works. So this is FigJam. It's pretty easy. But here's the thing. You are going to be submitting a lot of your tasks on this whiteboarding tool. So if you start with FigJam, you're going to have to go through to the end with FigJam. Please don't start with FigJam and then switch to Miro because you changed your mind. So I advise that you take a look at the two of them and you say, okay, this is the one I like. Another thing that FigJam does that Miro does not is that it lets you work offline. Miro will always require you to be online 24/7. If you're offline, it will tell you go back online before I let you use me. So you have to be connected to the internet. But if I turn off my data now, I'm not actually going to turn off my data because I'm on the pop-up. If I turn off my data, I can work offline, just like you can work offline when you are designing in Figma. So that's another plus. But if we're talking about templates, Miro has templates as well. But I think what else do I have to show? If you want to share, you already know how to share. You copy the link. I think that's all you need to know for now. Yeah, so you can use this template, populate it appropriately, and then you copy the link, make sure the link is accessible, make sure you copy it right, submit, and then we're still going to talk about what you're supposed to deliver in your tasks a little later. So this is that for FigJam. Let's go to Miro. If you want to create a Miro account, what you have to do is type, their domain name is miro.com. Okay, I'm already logged in, so it's taking me straight to my dashboard. But if I log out, it takes me, let's log out and see. Let's go through the user journey properly. Say I want to log out. How do I log out? Okay, log out here. So once you go to let's start from the very beginning. Okay, if you type miro.com, you're most likely going to end up here. But if you let's try this again. Let's go through the entire process properly. Okay, so if you are visiting for the very first time, this is what you see. So you want to come here to the top right corner and say sign up for free. But I already have an account, right? I don't need to sign up for free. If you already have an account, there is this link right next to the big button that says login. So if you're a new user, you sign up, it's free. You can sign up with your Google or any other thing. But I'm not going to do that because, let's go to sign up. I still have some time. So this is what it looks like. Sign up with your Google or your work email, you put your passwords. But I'm signing in because I already have an account. So let's sign in. So I'm going to sign in with Google. Okay. So once you sign in, it takes you to a dashboard where you can create a new board. You only get 3 free boards because it's a normal account, it's a free account. If you work in an organization that uses Miro, they'll give you budget for premium. When you have a premium account, you can do and undo a lot of exciting features. So I already have a board open, so let's just go straight to the board. Hopefully it hasn't kicked me out yet. And let's quickly run through each of the things that I mentioned. So this is one of the earliest research analysis I did, but I'm going to try as much as possible not to go through each of them so you don't get confused. Just focus on the important parts for your next task. Okay, so before I did my empathy map, this is the empathy map I did. Fields, thinks, says, does. Before I did that, I summarized the interview responses. So I just kind of summarized it on sticker notes for easy reference and put it on Miro. Now you're not required to do this for your own task. You can if you want to. See, it's not a bad idea. So here's the empathy map I populated my responses into. Now this empathy map is an aggregated empathy map. Remember, I said that there is the one user empathy map. That means one empathy map to one user response. And then there's the aggregated empathy map that has all the responses from all the users summarized into one big map. So what I did here is an aggregated empathy map. And then I identified my pain points. Still using sticky notes, I just kind of demarcated them and grouped them together. So then I also did a small user persona, some fake names, some fake genders, and then challenges, and then general description. But I would prefer that your own user persona has more detail than this. Follow the details that I explained in class. This one is not so detailed. Okay, so here's how I presented my articulated ideas. I kind of identified the possible reasons for each of the problems and then put the solutions in boxes underneath them. So let's just look at one and then move on to the prioritization grid. So I said long procedures in donation, and then I said the possible reason for that is over scrutiny or too many forms. And then I tried to highlight possible solutions. Now this, I just tried to churn out as many ideas as possible. Remember, they don't have to make sense at this point when you're brainstorming. So the ideas that I pointed out are limit donation procedures to 3 steps, progress bar during donation procedures. People are motivated with the idea of progress. When they see that they're making progress, they're motivated to continue to the end. So no feeding of personal information during donation. That means that they can just go ahead and donate. So I just try to put as many ideas on paper as possible. I didn't get to use most of these ideas after prioritizing, but it's just good to get your brain in that mood. And at the end of the day, it's the ideas that you churn out that you use. You're not going to use an idea that you don't put on paper. You're not going to use an idea that you don't actually try and produce. So you don't have to do this, but I want you to identify the pain points and then outline ideas that solve that specific pain points. So I want you to attach your ideas to pain points. You don't have to do it this way, but just make sure that you're attacking a pain point and bringing out ideas. So I did it for a lot of pain points. It's quite a lot of work, actually. It was quite monotonous. I don't miss my role, to be honest. And then let's look at the prioritization grid. So you can see impact here, you can see effort here, and then there's a kind of matrix separating each of them. So low effort, high impact over here, high effort, high impact over here, low effort, low impact over here, high effort, low impact over here, low effort, high impact, the ones that I want to do immediately, high effort, high impact, the ones that I want to do after I am done with the low effort, high impact. Low effort, low impact are the ones that I want to do after I'm done with the high effort, high impact. And then high effort, low impact are the ones that I do not want to do at all. I do not want to do at all. Remember, stay objective. Don't be biased because you brought up these ideas by yourself. Stay objective. Once you churn out the ideas, pretend they're not yours anymore. Pretend they belong to somebody else so you can treat them with as much objectivity as you can afford. I think that's all for, okay. Let's go back to the slides. And yeah, that's just a walkthrough of how everything is supposed to look. I hope that's been able to help, because I think one of the reasons that a lot of questions came after the last class was you guys didn't get to see. So I hope that has been able to help. So let's final thing before we take questions is talk about your next task. So we mentors, all of us, we are assuming that you've done your interviews. And how do you do your interviews? You send out screener surveys. You identify the ideal users, the target users for your product idea. And then you interview 5, just 5. Doesn't matter if you get 1 million responses to your screener surveys. We don't want to spread yourself too thin. So we say, just do 5 actual interviews. Physical, Google Meet, audio, voice call. Everything is fine. But make sure you're talking to one person, one-on-one, to get good feedback. Once you've done that, come up with an aggregated empathy map. Just one map that has all the responses from all 5 of your interviewees summarized. Then draw up a user persona. Let it have all the details that I described before, and then brainstorm and prioritize ideas. And then pick 5 ideas just pick 5 ideas that you're going to call your main design features. You want these ideas to fall under the low effort, high impact, and high effort, high impact. It can be a mix of the two. But since it's just 5 ideas, I don't think you should be going for low effort, low impact at all, because I'm very sure that you should be able to get 5 ideas between the low effort, high impact, and high effort, high impact quadrant. So analyze your interview feedback, come up with an aggregated empathy map, draw up a user persona, then brainstorm ideas, pick a pain point, bring out ideas for that specific pain point, prioritize them with the matrix, and then pick 5 features, pick 5 ideas that will become your design features. And with that, we can take questions.